let's start the conversation by talking a little bit about the history of the ruins and how we got there. So we have worked together really since 2011. We've known each other since 1989, but we started collaborating, I would say, in 2011, and really seriously when we did the ALICES. And the ALICES was a piece that started as a live performance, and then it was an opera that we did at iBeam in New York, and then it became a VR piece, a game on Oculus Rift, and then it became a Vive mixed reality piece with projections and motion captured dancers and musicians and projection mapping, and it was quite elaborate.
And it became a live performance with interactive VR materials with live percussionists in New York again.
Yeah, amazing. And so Alice evolved as the technology evolved. I think we stepped it up as things became available to us.
Yeah, Alice is a laboratory.
Yeah, she's CNMAT in a way. Even though Alice is totally, and all our work is very poetic and not typical research-driven work, it's certainly a laboratory. Because of its consistency, the two of us over and over and over. So in the beginning, Alice is very text-driven. I used a little bit of Lewis Carroll's original Alice. I used plagiarism. I plagiarized the voices and changed them over and over until it became crazy and irrational. And then handed those voices over to you, and you processed them and used them as a musical instrument. In the ALICES, we made a kind of fantastical, irrational world in which levels of mediation collapsed on one another and people and machines mixed in strange ways. You developed a way of dealing with the voice as a form of musical instrument. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So everything starts at the core with the frequency reality of your voice, and of course these days we can do all kinds of endless manipulations with computer transforms, but we don't want to do that. We really believe in art and quality, and we want what we do sonically to matter to the installation, to the whole work. And so over these years, and with this project, has been the creation, I would say, of systems of sort of computer-assisted work in which programs which are Max MSP based are modified to a degree that they have some amount of decision making built in that is autonomous to my work as the maker, but at the same time they're sculpted and pushed in directions that I consider to be appropriate to what we're doing, if that makes some sense.
Also the structure that's used. So it's my voices reading from these texts that float around in an architectural space that you've made in the Max patch that actually looks like a space when you look at the rhizomatic structure. And then they sort of come forward and back.
Part of the project has always been about discovering new territory for the work to be realized, and so we have been really available and open, and so these other mediums like the VR space, the interactive live performance with video, and sort of the mixing of the hybridization, all the different aspects sort of came to us as we went along with the project. And so we're the kind of artists, I think, that don't shy away from these changes. In fact, everything that we've done is adaptable and malleable and wants to be appearing and transformed in these ways. And so that's one of the hallmarks of, I think, contemporary technologies and creation, which is that we are not in fixed zones anymore. We're not bound to oil, for example, in a canvas. We completely transform. So from a painter to a digital artist, from a musician composer to I don't know what, a kind of mix of programmer software and semi-autonomous decision-making machines.
Do you want to talk about that in terms of developing a Unity specifically and VR specifically for chamber music, like as a mixing ground where people can perform and come together from remote locations? I mean, part of developing this was I felt that I was making a space for Danielle Di Bertolo, who was a touring, very accomplished improvisational cellist, and developed such bad allergies she couldn't perform live anymore. And in my imagination, I was making a kind of, place for the girl in the bubble to perform live. So this breakdown between the bubble, going into the bubble that others can enter is also the VR space and has this potential.
Well, it's amazing that with the COVID period came the total depletion or erasure of many forms of art, and music performance went completely out the window. And so trying to find alternate ways of experience performance is a kind of natural thing. It's a necessary thing in COVID.
So the Ruins, as you said, has this tone of morbidity, and it's about failed utopias, and you have me reading Thomas Jefferson and Walter Gropius and Henry Ford and Jim Jackson. What's his name again?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
We don't even like to say the man who cannot be named.
And you developed a software for doing that, a Max Patch. Do you want to talk about how you structured it to reflect this sort of serious and elegiac kind of experience?
Sure. Well, of the four voices that we have, all of them having different degrees of pomposity in their rhetoric, but the voice of Jim Jones is just nothing but horrific. There's just nothing redeeming about that voice, particularly in the aspectual reality of what happened, what this individual did. So I don't think that's the subject of this piece. And so his voice is primarily a ghost in the machine. But the others come and go, and that arriving and departure is not controlled by the mixing process of the composer, the maker. In fact, it's algorithmic, meaning that I set up situations of timings and decision making that happen in Max, not randomly, but more in a designed way, but that design would be different every mix to some degree. The trick, and this goes along with all of the ALICES project, they work this way, meaning that there's a shared decision making between the computer and myself. And so rather than tell the computer that I want this voice at this particular point, I tell the computer that more probabilistic, I'd like to hear more of Jefferson, or I'd like to hear more of Ford, but I don't want to hear Jim Jones anymore. So occasionally Jim Jones just screams out, and that's all you get.
So you create an environment based on what you like, basically.
Exactly, is
it an AI?
It's not an AI. It really is computer-assisted creation, and so it really is about intelligently helping guide the decision-making process, so that there's flexibility, there's surprise, but there's also a conscious art making going on. It's not just a release of intention.
So how is this reflected in the project? I think this is part of a larger project. We started as collaborating on individual pieces, and it sort of grew into a meta project. And the meta project is virtual chambers for chamber music. It's like we jump to the technologies, the technologies as they evolved, we entered, and then the possibilities for the technologies, which include the idea of creating infrastructure. So although all of these pieces were test cases, they were individual work, we began to realize that we were actually making infrastructure for a VR multi-track environment that is a spatialized chamber music.
I will ask your permission to write to you sometimes and to assure you of the esteem and respect with which I have to be, dear sir, your most obedient and most humble servant.